Formula One on 5 Live.
Welcome to Belgium and welcome to the Spa-Francorchamps circuit, where the fans are taking their seats in readiness for the second practice session. And also taking their seats are the 20 drivers ready to take on this epic circuit. 7.004 kilometres of wonderful track lies before them, and it's time to try and work out the perfect setup for this interesting circuit layout. In FP1, it was Max Verstappen in the Red Bull who led the way, back to business as usual, but unfortunately, Max Verstappen and Red Bull have now confirmed that he will take a grid penalty this weekend, and we think it will be a 10-place grid drop at this point. So it's going to be a difficult weekend for Max Verstappen, but it looks like at this point he's got some nice pace in the car. Everybody is getting ready down here in the pit lane. It's Rosanna Tennant with you, and joining me in the commentary box, it's our lead commentator Harry Benjamin, alongside editor-in-chief for Autosport Rebecca Clancy. Harry, Max Verstappen fastest in FP1. It's a bit disappointing, isn't it? When he's fastest, he's then going to take a penalty. So it's looking like a topsy-turvy weekend for Red Bull.
Yeah, it is, but we've been suspecting this penalty coming for a little while, and this is the track you're going to do it at. He's not the only one. Yuki Tsunoda for the RB team also electing to take a grid penalty, and will start towards the back of the grid. It's because it's, as you say, it's such a long circuit. You can overtake. It's got massively long straights, that Kemmel straight down to Lecombe, and then the run really out of Stavelot all the way through Blanchimont towards the bus stop chicane. There's some good overtaking opportunities, not to mention the start straight. Powerful DRS, and we know that Red Bull has quite a good DRS effect. So on paper, it should be fine. But, you know, we said this a couple of years ago when Verstappen took a grid penalty for the same reasons, and he started outside of the top 10. And we all kind of came into the weekend predicting that he was odds on going to cut his way through the field and take the win. He did on that occasion. This weekend, the way the last few races have gone, 7 different winners from the first 13 rounds this year. You can't predict anything in this game right now, and that's what we're all here for. It's brilliant.
It really is brilliant. Yes, Max Verstappen fastest in FP1, ahead of our latest F1 race winner, Oscar Piastri. He was just over half a second behind Verstappen. And then Alex Albon in the Williams, P3 for him, a really impressive FP1 performance. And I think Williams thinking they could go well this weekend. Let's just remind you of how things stack up in the Drivers' Championship. Max Verstappen still leading the way on 265 points, ahead of Lando Norris with 189. Then it's Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz and Oscar Piastri. That's your top 5 in the drivers. Meanwhile, in the Constructors' Championship, it is getting closer. Red Bull with a lead still, but it's now down to 51 points ahead of McLaren, who are P2 in the standings, ahead of Ferrari in P3. It is nice and tight as we head towards the summer shutdown. Just this race weekend to go, and then F1 packs up for its holidays. And Beck Clancy joining us again for FP2. Some big news in the break since FP1, with the team principal of Alpine, Bruno Faman, due to step aside and take over some different responsibilities at Alpine. What can you tell us?
Yes, it has just been announced in the press conference. He announced it himself, actually, that he will be stepping down as the interim team principal, as he has been for the past year. We don't have the name of the replacement at the moment. We do expect it to be a gentleman called Ollie Oakes, who is currently the team principal of High Tech in Formula 2 and Formula 3, not the British soap opera as we were discussing earlier before we came on air. But yes, big news, and it kind of all stems back to Alpine, where there's this big management shake-up happening, a lot of changes happening. They are rumoured to be teaming up with Mercedes for a technical partnership, getting rid of their own Renault engine and taking on the Mercedes engine and gearbox and other elements. So yes, big news from Alpine over the short break that we've just had.
I texted Ollie Oakes earlier on today just to tell him that there were lots of rumours around the paddock, and he replied saying, yes, lots of rumours, smiley face. So, who knows? Rumours are often true, aren't they, in Formula One, Harry?
I think you're just flexing that you've got Ollie Oakes' number there. Hello.
Sounds about that.
Oh, you know people in some high places. I mean, look, Alpine...
Even you are in my phone book, Harry.
Oh.
Even you.
Have you saved my number finally? Honoured. I think...
There is this guy that always texts me over a race weekend. I don't know who he is.
I do. It forms part of this wider story, doesn't it, about Alpine at the moment, and big changes are undergoing clearly on a management level. Still that second seat to be filled. They've We know Esteban Ocon's now going to Haas. Who goes in that second seat? And what's going to power that car? What's going to be in the back of it next year, 2026 and beyond? Are they going to get rid of their engine program and become a supplier of Mercedes, perhaps? Or, sorry, a customer of Mercedes, perhaps? So there's a lot of questions still to be answered at Alpine.
A few questions, as you can hear the tyres going on Charles Leclerc's Ferrari. A few questions at Alpine just today, short-term wise, about Esteban Ocon's car. He had a trouble in FP1 with a suspected water leak. I have just seen, I think it was an Alpine heading out on track, Harry. You'll be able to confirm with the driver tracker. The car's now heading down to the end of the pit lane. Green light as well, so they're going to be eager to get out on track. I was talking just before we came on air to the performance engineer at Mercedes, Andrew Shovlin, about the chance of rain. It's around 40% chance. There are some darker clouds here and there around the circuit here, but such is the special and unique quality of Spa-Francorchamps. It can be raining in one part and dry in the other. So we'll keep an eye on the weather radar for you. But Harry, I know you're going to keep an eye on what's going on out on track. Over to you, my friend.
Thanks, Rosanna. Have you got Andrew Shovlin's number as well?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Is that how you knew about the weather? Yeah, fair. Thank you, Rosanna. We'll come back to you for updates throughout this final practice session of the day, second of 3. And for those who wish to do a sync up, it's 58 minutes and 50, 49, 48, 47 seconds remain of FP2. And it was indeed the Alpine of Pierre Gasly which ventured out first. Bit of a different colour scheme on both Alpines this weekend. They're sporting a bit more red to celebrate the new Deadpool and Wolverine film, new overalls as well for both Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly. Esteban Ocon confined to his garage for free practice 1 with reliability issues, really investigating a suspected leak on that car. Didn't take any further part in FP1. We shall see if he emerges for FP2. Indeed, he is out there on track at the moment, and it's been a tough time for actually Pierre Gasly's side of the garage as well when it comes to reliability. Gearbox issue in Silverstone that he didn't even start the race. Hydraulics in Hungary saw him DNF, so back-to-back non-finishes for them. It's amazing to think that this time last year in the sprint race, Pierre Gasly was right up there in the top 3 spots. So how quickly things can change in Formula 1, both ways though. Esteban Ocon, good to see him back out on the track. Hopefully Alpine have fixed those issues as he gears up to make his 80th start for Alpine this weekend in his what will be now his final season with the French marque before he departs to Haas. But pretty much everybody heading out onto the circuit, with the exception at the moment of Logan Sargent in the Williams, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, and Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. And it's a long circuit, this Spa-Francorchamps. As Rosanna said, it's just over 7 kilometres long. That's just over 4.3 miles, 19 turns, 10 to the right, 9 to the left, and really has been home to the Belgian Grand Prix, well, before Formula 1 became an official championship back in 1925, then certainly on the calendar since the 1950s, with a couple of deviations to Nivelles and Zolder, but Spa-Francorchamps becoming a real staple. And Beck, Spa has faced increasing scrutiny over the last couple of years to remain on the calendar. It seems for now to be holding on, but would you want to see a circuit like this fall off the calendar?
I really struggle with this track because I love the old tracks. I love the racing it produces, the history here. It is brilliant. But it's hard to ignore the question, is it fit for purpose? It wasn't long ago that Antoine Hubert died here in F2 on a weekend which was awful for crashes. Obviously, Hubert died. We had the W Series crash, which was awful. Lando Norris had a big smash as well.
Milano Van der Hoff in the Formula Regional last year.
Yes, yeah.
Just then as well.
That climb up Eau Rouge, it's blind over the hill. If anything happens, you get bounced off the barriers back into the track, and that's where the accidents happen. And so this is why I struggle with it, because is it safe? And we have this debate every year now, it feels like, and they are always doing stuff to try and make it safer. They push the barriers back, the gravel traps that they put in to try and slow the cars down. So it's a difficult one. At the moment, Spa is part of the conversation about the European Grand Prix coming back in, which will be a rotation of tracks. I think that would make sense. This is a... let's be honest, for those who go to the circuits, logistically, it's not that friendly. I appreciate it's very good on a Sunday to sit there and watch it, but the facilities are questionable, let's say. Getting in and out is always difficult. You end up staying at least an hour away from the track, and then you get stuck in the traffic, and that's not a good side of it either. But yeah, I suspect that this one, long talked about, it feels like this conversation is forever going about this rotational European Grand Prix, but I suspect this is where Spa will end up.
So what would that European Grand Prix cover then? Spa, maybe a Barcelona, if Madrid has a permanent spot as the Spanish Grand Prix?
Yeah,
Imola. And so would this see a reduction in 24, or would this just allow room for 24 to remain, but with perhaps more Middle Eastern, American slots filling those European gaps?
I love the optimism of there being fewer than 24, if only. And also, by the way, just to add into that, there is talks of Monaco going into that rotation as well. Whether or not F1 will ever actually pull the trigger on that, I doubt it as it stands at the moment. No, it'll be 24 at the very least. They are looking to increase that, as is always the way, and it will be new tracks looking to come in. There's chatter, isn't there, about Saudi wanting 2 races. They've obviously got the one in Jeddah, which is only ever supposed to be temporary before we move up to what will be the permanent home in Qadir. But now there's chatter actually about Jeddah keeping their race, and so then we'll have 2 in Saudi. They obviously pay a lot of money, in the region of $50 million a year, we believe. So if they're willing to pay another $50 million, I don't think F1 are going to be walking away from that. Yes, another US race, maybe not. Chicago very much would like one, from what we understand, but not likely. The never-ending conversation about New York getting one, which would actually be held in New Jersey, I think, if it did go ahead. Although it's not going to. So I don't think the US will get another one. There's obviously, they've been looking at Argentina again, which, quite frankly, if we're going to Argentina, I'm all in. Buenos Aires is still one of my...
Fancy is sold.
Yeah, Buenos Aires is one of my favourite cities in the entire world. And obviously the big hole on the calendar of a global sport is there's nothing on the African continent.
There was rumour that Kyle Army's obviously the shout, but then I heard actually no, they're rather a street circuit.
Well, Kyle Army was on the cards for a long time. There were a lot of visits there by F1, Stefano Domenicali, the chairman, chief executive, the big boss at F1, and many people from within F1 went down there. They actually just couldn't make it work. Again, the facilities, logistics of it all, it didn't work. They have looked at doing a street race again. It's just not been possible. So I don't actually know where they are with their options on the African continent at the moment, but I know it is something that they are looking at.
Yeah, something Lewis Hamilton has championed for so many years. How could Formula One truly be a global sport when we are not represented globally, to be in the African continent? So that will be a continuing ongoing discussion. 52 minutes and 6.54 seconds remain. Max Verstappen is fastest on the medium tyres, just coming back out onto the track actually. His fastest lap is a 1:43.456, a tenth ahead of Lando Norris, who put it on the soft tyre. Then it's Piastri, Hamilton, Perez, the top 5. Russell, Stroll, Albon, Sainz, Gasly in 10th, ahead of Bottas, Alonso. Ricciardo is 13th, ahead of Hülkenberg and Ocon. Zhou Guanyu is 16th. Yuki Tsunoda is 17th on an outlap at the moment, yet to set a competitive lap time, and we are waiting to see the first lap times from Sargent Magnussen and Charles Leclerc, who's put on the soft tyre and is beginning his stint on looking at some quali simulation pace. Let's pop down though for the first time in the session to the pit lane. Rosanna Tennant, what news?
Well, McLaren just doing a practice pit stop there for Lando Norris. And yes, the soft tyre being put on his car and Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. Interesting decision. Could it be linked to the weather? There is a small chance of rain. As I look up to the sky, there are some darker clouds, a little bit ominous, but the sun is trying desperately to burn through those clouds. So interesting choices to go on the soft tyre straight away from Lando Norris and McLaren. Be interesting to see what they learn from that, as now Oscar Piastri pulls in on the medium tyre and the mechanics rush over to the McLaren to get him back into the garage. Stands are nice and full, Harry. They've been cheering on the cars. Before the session even started, a tractor went up the start-finish straight and they were cheering it on. So fans in fine spirit, really excited to see this weekend unfold, I think, because it's going to be an exciting one, as we said at the start of the show. Still fairly unpredictable, especially with that penalty for Max Verstappen. So lots to look out for the fans who've made the trip here to the Ardennes Forest.
Yeah, no matter where Verstappen qualifies, he will be dropped 10 positions. Rosanna, before you run off, though, we've been working hard.
I'm not running off anywhere, Harry.
Well, you've always got someone to meet. Before you do that, Beck and I and our wonderful producer Paddy, you may have liaised with him over the years. We've been working hard in the interim up in the commentary box because you threw such a brilliant quiz at us earlier about are there any crossovers between drivers who have also competed in the Olympic Games, and we really enjoyed that. So we've got one for you now. Which current or former circuits have been used as Olympic venues? Can you name any?
So the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, does that count because of the rowing or not really?
No, we will give you that. We will give you that.
Okay.
Very well done. That's one. Montreal. That's one. We have figured 6 in total. So we're looking for 6, and this did require a little bit of extensive research.
And Summer and Winter Olympics. And Paralympics.
Sochi
yes.
Sochi, 2 for 2 for Rosanna Tennant. Hashtag BBC F1 as well. We'll look to see yours. We've got Montreal and Sochi at the moment, but I'm
going to stop there, so others have got a chance. Okay. I'm going to stop there.
That's where I stopped.
No, Rosanna, we can balance both at the same time. We're not leaving you until you name all 6.
6. Okay.
You got 2 so far. We're off to a good start.
Yeah, I'm quite proud of myself actually on that note. Let me ponder it while I'm walking up and down the pit lane. Is that a flat no?
Okay, no, you can. Just no Googling. You can,
I'm not Googling.
You can text Ollie Oakes. You can text Andrew Shovlin.
You mean phone my friends?
Yeah. But you can phone a friend, but you cannot Google. And we don't offer a 50-50 split.
Can I just make a point of announcing that I was part of the winning team at the Williams F1 quiz last night, hosted by team principal James Vowles. I actually came away a winner.
Now, I was wondering when you were going to squeeze that in.
Honestly,
did you win anything?
It's been a spring in my step. Yeah.
What did you win?
A mini helmet, a mini Alex Albon helmet.
Oh, no Logan Sargent helmet.
I think they might be going cheaply on eBay somewhere. No, we got an Alex Albon one.
I tell you what was your contribution? Where was your strong suit? What was the particular question you answered?
It's a good question where my contribution was. I think I was just sort of helping out with the banter, refilling a few glasses. I'm not sure I was giving very much help to the team. I was kind of riding on their coattails. But hey, look, I've
heard my Autosport colleague was very useful.
Oh, can you name drop that one for me?
Yeah. I'm not sure my name drops are as good as yours.
Who's that?
John Noble.
Oh, John Noble. Yes, he was very helpful. We had a bit of Bootylicious in there. We had to name some songs. Yeah, no, it was great. I think I helped with All Saints Never Ever. That was probably my contribution. I managed to guess that song correctly. But yeah, it was really good fun. And as I say, spring in my step when I walked into the paddock today. I felt like I was a winner, up there with the champions.
And how are the heads?
I'm actually okay because I was driving, so I kept a cool head. Very sensible. But James Vowles was issuing limoncello shots for those who misbehaved, so I stayed on the right side of the law.
Well, we're glad to hear it, Rosanna, and it's a shame we obviously didn't make the cut on that one. So it's nice to have you representing the BBC 5 Live team on that in a respectful manner too. Always appreciated. But well done. Out of which current or former circuits have been used as Olympic venues, Rosanna? Out the block, Sochi and Montreal, both of them correct. Hashtag BBC F1. Beck and I have found 6 that we believe are acceptable answers. Now, we've had a few come in. Brands Hatch was used in the 2012 Paralympic Games. Correct. That is one. Brands Hatch will allow that. Who else have we got here? Renee, hashtag BBC F1, has said Montjuic in Spain. Yeah, in Barcelona. Yeah, the circuit of Barcelona. Yeah. That was actually the start-finish line for the time trial in the circuit of Barcelona.
We had that.
So we had that one correct. Tick. Brands Hatch, Barcelona. Who else? Amit has got in touch. He's also said Brands Hatch and Jacarapagua. You'll have to be a bit more specific on that one. I'm not sure on that one. But hey ho, keep them coming in. Hashtag BBC F1. other internet search engines are available, if you heard me say Google earlier. But we are looking for 6. We've got Sochi, Montreal, Brands Hatch and Barcelona now. So Beck and I think we have 2 others that are up in the cards. So keep them coming in. And Rosanna can fill us in on the final 2 if nobody else gets them. Back to the on-track action, though. 45 minutes and 12 seconds remain. Verstappen is fastest. Now onto the medium tyre, a 1:43.3 ahead of Norris, who's on an outlap. On the soft tyre, Russell is 3rd, Sainz 4th, Piastri 5th, Leclerc, Hamilton, Perez, Albon and Stroll the top 10. Now, Beck, coming on to the McLaren saga, off the back of Hungary, we've talked about it quite in depth about whether it was the right way to go about things from the McLaren pit wall perspective. Should Lando Norris have just taken things into his own hands and either gone on to take the win regardless of what the team said, or indeed let Piastri through earlier and then have a legitimate fight to the end of the race in what was actually the quicker car out of the 2 and go for the win, perhaps on more pure merit. But I wonder, the bigger question out of this is McLaren and having a number 1 and a number 2 driver. They've got one of the best lineups on the grid. Piastri has come in so highly rated. Alpine fumbled the man who won Formula Renault in his first year, Formula 3 in his first year, Formula 2 in his first year, and now is a Formula 1 Grand Prix winner. And he won a sprint race last year as well. Let's not forget that. How do you decide who's the number 1 and number 2 in that team?
I actually think that's relatively straightforward. In this season alone, I think it's Lando Norris. I think they have spent so much time building this team around Lando Norris. It irked Daniel Ricciardo when he was in the team. He obviously... Netflix, I don't want to talk too much about Drive to Survive. They played up the fallout between those 2 drivers, which didn't really exist. But it was quite clear even at that stage when you had Daniel Ricciardo coming in. He obviously ended up winning that race at Monza. It was the 1-2 for McLaren, but it was very much clear even then that it was forming its entire operation around Lando Norris, this great hope as they saw him for the team. And I think they actually do still see it that way. For me, I think once the team order came through, Norris should have obeyed it straight away. And he was the fast car. We even saw that even as they were having the debate between themselves about letting him through or not. And he should have let him through straight away, because you shouldn't defy team orders. It is dreadful for the culture, the dynamics, everything within the team. But he was quicker, so he should have just proved he was quicker. We know they're free to race, so he should have done it straight away and then got him back fair and square racing. Obviously, probably heart-stopping moments for McLaren watching a potential 1-2 end up in a wall. But actually, I don't think it should have even got to that stage. It should have been McLaren saying to Oscar Piastri, you need to take this one on the chin. The championship, both championships are still alive. There's a lot of chatter, isn't there, at the moment, that Max Verstappen, the lead that he has in the Drivers' Championship, that 76 points lead that he has over Norris with 11 races to go, is just too great to overturn. OK, it's never been done before, but that's not to say it couldn't be done before. If Norris had won last weekend in Hungary, Max Verstappen finished 10th, that's 10 points. Norris would have got 25 points. That's 15 points he could have clawed out. Red Bull keep having off weekends. And actually, what McLaren are saying is, OK, we'll take the fight to win the Constructors, and they're only 51 points behind Red Bull in the Constructors. Perez Radio.
Yeah, there's a lot of grounding for Norris into the Rouge. Copy.
Sergio Perez just saying there's a lot of grounding for Norris into Eau Rouge, and Perez had a great view as he let Norris in the McLaren rise up through Eau Rouge, and sparks flying. Actually, a lot of cars are scraping that wooden plank underneath of the car. It is bottoming out. It's not only that McLaren, you see the Ferraris and the Mercedes too, not only up Eau Rouge but through Blanchimont as well, the final corner. So cars running quite low around this track, but Norris then skirting his way up the hill, 2/10 at the moment behind Verstappen. He's out there on the soft tyre, is Lando Norris. I completely agree with your point about having to instill the right culture, I suppose, within the team when it comes to playing that team game. But then, and the points speak for themselves, Norris is the better chance right now, absolutely. But then what happens in the future? Because we've seen that a successful top team really operates best when they have a defined number 1 and a backup number 2. Piastri's so highly rated. I can't see him willing to settle to be the backup, the number 2. But I certainly can't see Norris like that either.
But that's why I said only for this year, because it's quite clear at the moment that it's set up for Norris. Piastri, just you take it on the chin for 1 year. The only time a team can get away with having no number 1 driver is when they're so far in front that it's irrelevant which one wins. They can take points off each other and whatever happens. We saw it with Mercedes 2016, Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg, free to race, and we all know how that ended, a falling out of best friends. But that is the only time that you can let your drivers really race. When it is so tight in the championship and the teams, we've got 7 different race winners. We've got 3 teams which have had both of their drivers win a race, and that isn't including Red Bull, amazingly. We'll come to Perez. But you cannot afford at this stage to not have a number 1 driver when it's so close in the field. You have to back one of them.
So Verstappen is obviously the number 1 at Red Bull. Norris, number 1 at McLaren. At least we believe he should be prioritised as that. Mercedes?
Well, that's changing, isn't it? I would say it was certainly Lewis Hamilton.
And by default now it's Russell.
Yeah.
Fine, we'll have it. Charles Leclerc?
Absolutely, 100%.
But then next year, how do you work that? Leclerc is Ferrari golden boy, through and through. Ferrari driver academy member, brought up through the ranks. Then he's up against Lewis Hamilton next year, who is statistically the greatest of all time. Ferrari surely cannot prioritise Charles Leclerc over Lewis Hamilton.
Why not? Well, I mean, this is why I'm not a team principal, to be honest.
I hear there's a job going
on.
There,
yeah, I know. Just Alpine. Not for that mess, thanks. No. I know the point you're making. It's a super tricky one. Everything is shaped. The whole car is designed around Leclerc. But then Hamilton's going in with all of his experience, and absolutely no one is in any doubt that Lewis Hamilton is going to Ferrari with the view that he wants that 8th World Championship. And he isn't going to give it up. But the point with Lewis Hamilton, I will say, is he's never had number 1 status. This is what we've been told. Mercedes are adamant that they've never given it to him. I mean, against Bottas, it was pretty obvious. It didn't really need to be stated. And obviously, clearly, during that dominant era and against Rosberg, they were free to race. So, in a way, I can understand that he's never had that number 1 status. He also, having spoken to him many times about this, he doesn't feel he needs it. He thinks he can just do it all on the track himself anyway, and that's quite an interesting attitude to have, I suppose. And he hasn't really defied team orders in the past. We've seen him give up wins to Bottas, and it's worked in both ways. And yeah, I guess it's a kind of mindset as to how you go racing. And if Lewis Hamilton still feels that when he gets into Ferrari, that he doesn't need that number 1 status, he'll just do his talking on the track, then that's one less headache for Fred Vasseur. Yeah,
and I suppose, if you do your talking on the track and you're ahead and you've got more points than you are, the one that the team need to get behind and prioritise when push comes to shove. 37 minutes and 14 seconds remain of FP2. Sainz has just gone fastest on the soft tyre for Ferrari, a 1:43.0. Verstappen is out there again, though, on an outlap at the moment. He has put the soft tyre on, so we'll see what the Dutchman has ahead of Norris. Russell, Hamilton is 5th. Then it's Piastri, Perez, Leclerc, Albon, Stroll 10th. Ricciardo, Gasly, Alonso, Ocon, Bottas 15th, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Sargent, Hulkenberg and Zhou Guanyu 20th, and last a mixture of cars still in the pits and making their way out onto the track. Rosanna Tennant, have you had any more thoughts on which current or former circuits have been used as Olympic venues? We'll hear them after Sainz.
Feel a bit alone out there. Yeah, lonely.
Carlos Sainz feeling a bit lonely out there. Is it lonely out there for you, Rosanna, as well?
What a segue. No, I'm surrounded by friends, almost family, I would call them after 12 years in this business, Harry. I'm actually just watching Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes garage. He came in, they wheeled him back into the garage, and the mechanics were super quick at getting the medium tyres off and racing around trying to get the softs back onto his car. Because it's such a long lap here, you don't get many stabs at it. So I guess they want to get him out nice and quickly to experience the conditions and experience the track. So lots to learn. As I mentioned in FP1, so much of this track has been resurfaced. There you go, that's the Mercedes firing up, and they're about to get Lewis Hamilton back out on track. So much of this track has been resurfaced coming into this weekend that there's going to be a lot of learning, and I know Mercedes are hoping for cooler conditions, but Andrew Shovlin, their performance director, said to me that actually the conditions sort of become second to how this tarmac behaves. So I think they were hoping that the tarmac was going to be nice. Be interesting to hear what the drivers have to say after FP2 when of course they talk to the media. There we go, there goes Lewis Hamilton. Nice shiny softs on the W15 car, and he heads off into the fast lane in the pit lane, which has also been resurfaced, looking very nice, I have to say. Nicer than the roads around me at home. You were mentioning the Olympics and the circuits that have also been locations for them.
Correct.
And you mentioned Hakarapagua earlier, and you were a little uncertain, weren't you? Well, it's in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, also known as, if people are wondering, maybe they've got confused with it, but it's actually the Autódromo Internacional Nelson Piquet, so it has a couple of different names. And it was a location for F1. They raced there for 10 years, not since 1989 though, and it was then, a bit sad really, demolished for the 2016 Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. So
it doesn't count?
Well, sort of. I don't know what you count as sort of...
Well, hang on, producer Paddy. Okay, fine. We're allowing it. It's the same bit of Earth, so we're allowing it. Well done. We're allowing it.
Made way for the facilities to be used at 2016 Summer Olympics. Of course, the former Supremo CEO of F1, Bernie Ecclestone, was quite keen to get a race in Rio de Janeiro, but that hasn't happened. And of course, we still visit Sao Paulo, and obviously the fans go wild in Sao Paulo when F1 is in town. So there you go. That's the Olympic link for Hakarapagua.
Very impressed. So that brings us up to, well, actually we didn't have that one on our list, so that means 7 total. So we've had Sochi, we've had Montreal, we've had Brands Hatch, Barcelona, now we've had Rio. We are still looking, in our heads at least, for 2 more.
No, my brother's text me.
Oh, hang on, does
this count? Am I allowed to get... This is a phone a friend moment.
Absolutely, no, please.
So my brother...
The floor is yours.
And I think he's right. My brother says Albert Park in Melbourne.
But we looked into that one. I didn't think we found anything there. No?
Do we not think?
Well, have a double check.
I'm going to double check.
Hashtag BBC F1.
My brother's rarely wrong.
Rubes, absolutely spot on with Rio. Well done. Who else have we got? Stu, hashtag BBC F1. Yes. Rio also there. Technically the site was used, but after the Grand Prix circuit was demolished, but we are allowing that. We have had a couple of others come in, but I want to see if Rosanna gets it first. So we'll see if she can come back in with that one. But we are still looking for 2 more on our books, possibly 3, which should bring us up to a total of 8. Here's Piastri.
I just need to check the floor. Turn into a skateboarder at turn 7. Top 8.
Yeah, Piastri just had a little moment coming through Lacombe, running a little out wide and scraping the floor of his McLaren as he went fastest by 2 thousandths of a second ahead of Max Verstappen, both on the soft tyre, then Sainz, Russell, Stroll 5th, Norris in the pits at the moment is 6th, Hamilton on an outlap also on the soft tyre. So we're getting some quick runs in at the moment. The sound you're hearing is Daniel Ricciardo, who's just crossed the line in the RB to go 8th. Not very happy with his team post-Hungary due to the strategy he was put on, but coming here feeling much more confident in himself and his performances. Meanwhile, his teammate Yuki Tsunoda, who has been beating him so far this year, certainly qualifying head-to-head, 9-4 in favour of the Japanese driver, 8-4 in favour for the racing head-to-head, but he starts on the back foot as he crosses the line to go 14th. Tsunoda with a grid penalty will start towards the back of the pack for taking a new engine outside of his allocation, electing to do exactly what Max Verstappen has done this weekend. Perez has just popped up into 5th as the McLaren team shroud the papaya McLaren of Oscar Piastri to have a little look at the floor and check how much damage there is. But so tight between Piastri and Verstappen, 2 thousandths of a second splitting them. Piastri's fastest time a 1:42.475. Now, hashtag BBC F1. Beck, I don't know if we've had any more from your brother, but Stu has said...
No, he's wrong as well.
Well, Stu said Melbourne had the Commonwealth Games cycling.
No, it is the Olympics.
So no, we're not counting that.
No.
It's got to be Olympics or bust.
Sorry, Ed, not having that one.
So we won't be allowing that one, I'm afraid. Shall we? A couple of people have said the right answers here. So David has gone with Fuji in the Fuji Japanese Olympics, and that was what we were looking for. Fuji. So too has Brian. So well done, Brian. You got that one as well, and a couple of others, but you've disappeared off my screen. So congratulations if you got Fuji. We're still looking for one more. We are still looking for one more. Rosanna Tennant, with half an hour remaining of free practice 2, have you got our sole remaining circuit that has also been used as an Olympic venue?
Is it in France?
No.
Okay.
All right, we'll come back.
I was going to say Japan, and so I've been slightly put to the post on that.
Oh, sorry.
Don't worry. I'm a fair competitor. I'll keep thinking. My poor brain.
Well, this is what we like to do in FP2. We like to challenge the brain, but we are looking for one. It's not in Europe. There's your clue. It's not in Europe. Which current or former circuits have been used as Olympic venues? Hashtag BBC F1. We are looking for one more on our list. We've had Sochi, correct. Montreal, Brands Hatch, Barcelona, Fuji, Rio. Have all been correct. We're looking for one more. We've got 29 minutes and 30 seconds remain. And then we might even have another quiz for you as well. We've been very busy in the preamble to FP2, I'll tell you that right now. Cars out on track though, a fair few with less than half an hour remaining to go. It's still pretty tight between Piastri and Verstappen at the head of the field. Zhou Guanyu for Sauber has just got himself up into 17th spot ahead of Tsunoda, who didn't have a great soft tyre run. The two Alpines finding themselves right at the back of the pack, but Esteban Ocon will be pleased just to get some mileage under his belt as he actually embarks on a lap at the moment into the braking zone of La Source through the U-shape bend, right-hander. Then you get the first of the DRS detection points before full throttle, if you dare, up through Eau Rouge, over the top of the hill. He's got a bit of traffic in front of him with the Sauber, gets nicely out of the way, down the long run through the Kemmel straight. This, the longest lap of the year, before he reaches almost 300 kilometers an hour before he slides on the brakes, navigates through Lecumbe and Malmedy. Gravel, 2 drivers left, then it's downhill braking towards Brussels. Always gives you understeer this corner. It's almost a never-ending bend to the right hand. Manages nice, neat and tidy from Esteban Ocon through the corner with no name, which has been renamed Jackie Ickx corner. Then it's the double left-hander of Pouon. So easy to find yourself spinning off into the runoff, but he manages to navigate again the Aston Martin of traffic through the chicane of 12 and 13, then into Stavelot in a slightly new look Alpine. It's gone from blue to red to celebrate the Deadpool and Wolverine film in a tie-up there. Of course, that features Ryan Reynolds, who is now one of the main backers of the Alpine Formula One team. Through Blanchimont, flat out, sparks flying on the underside of that Alpine into the braking zone of the bus stop chicane, slings it into the right, then to the left, slightly uphill. Runs as wide as you can without putting all 4 wheels across the white line, and across the line for Esteban Ocon to go 6th fastest with a 1:43.401, immediately put down to 7th because Lando Norris has just come over the line, fastest of anybody in the middle and final sectors to go fastest with a 1:42.2, 2/10 clear of his teammate Oscar Piastri. So it is Norris and Piastri, the top 2 ahead of Verstappen. Leclerc is 4th, then Sainz 5th. Russell, Ocon, Magnussen, Perez and Stroll, the top 10. Hamilton is 11th ahead of Alonso. Ricciardo, Gasly, Hulkenberg, the top 15. Albon, Bottas, Sargent, Zhou and Tsunoda, the 20 drivers who have all taken part in this session. So far, nobody has been confined too much to the pit lane, unlike FP1 that we saw earlier today. I tell you what went a bit under the radar, Beck, at the end of the Hungarian Grand Prix. There seemed to be a little bit of tension between the 2 Aston Martin drivers, Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll, and I'm not sure there was really much to read into it, but I think there's a bigger picture here about where Aston Martin are competitively on and off the track at the moment. They kind of find themselves adrift in the Constructors' Championship, 5th with 69 points. Behind them is RB with 33, and ahead is Mercedes with 241. And you just get the sense that Alonso, who has committed his future with them towards the start of this year, this is not what he wants to be seeing from the team that he has signed on through to we believe, 2026.
No, it doesn't seem like a happy camp there at Aston Martin, does it? We've had a bit of management change as well, with Martin Whitmarsh leaving as CEO and Andy Cowell from Mercedes coming in. I thought it was quite an interesting radio message last weekend in Hungary, actually. They were running different upgrades, and during one of the practice sessions, they were asking Alonso for some help on how to balance Stroll's car, and Alonso just responded with, "Good luck," which doesn't seem like what you want to hear. Stroll, although he's never particularly happy, it seems, at the moment with Stroll. But no, it doesn't seem like a very happy camp. They've only scored points in 2 of the last 4 races, and even then it's only 11 points. As you say, they're nowhere near where they were last year in the championship. I mean, the thing with Aston Martin is it's a bit tricky, because they obviously came in at the start of last season, 6 podiums out of the first 8 races. Alonso, no one could quite believe it, absolutely flying. And the expectation is, it was much higher, let's say. This season has been, they're nowhere really. It's not the team that we were expecting. There is a bit of speculation about Mike Crack and his position as the team principal as well. But no, they don't seem to be in the position that they would want to be in, that's for sure. Obviously, the chatter around Adrian Newey, who is leaving the Red Bull, is very strong. He is, well, I think you could argue that he's the architect of that amazing championship winning car. Has been, I think he's the most successful person within F1, or just on championships alone. If they can get him, then that's brilliant, and it's a real statement of intent. They've got this huge new factory just outside of Silverstone. They've invested millions in.
Just 23 minutes left of free practice 2. It's the 2 McLarens currently fastest after the quick runs. Norris ahead of Piastri. Max Verstappen, though, not far behind, but Verstappen comes into this weekend with one hand tied behind his back because he has a 10-place grid penalty for exceeding his engine allowance, so he will start outside of the top 10 at a time where competition is increasing. McLaren and Red Bull, though, certainly the ones to watch this weekend. Well handed, Bet Clancy. Was that your first time, 5 Live, coming in mid-sentence?
No, I know. It's like, stop what you're doing.
Against the best of us. We love a 5 Live update. Those are the hardcore crew who listen on the BBC Sport website and app, and now those who are listening on their sound speaker of choice. You know how it works by now. We have been asking the question that has got you all talking, of which current or former circuits have been used as Olympic venues, because we're in full Olympic fever here. Of course, the opening ceremony getting underway tonight. You can hear that from 7 o'clock this evening on BBC Radio 5 Live. Now, we have already had Sochi, Montreal, Brands Hatch, Barcelona, Rio, Fuji, all correct. Beck and I are still looking for one more, Rosanna Tennant. Can you put us out of our misery?
I feel like I'm in misery.
Yeah, you
I was going to go for Korea, and now I'm thinking Austria. But I don't know. Am I anywhere? Austria's in Europe, and you said it wasn't Europe, so it can't be that.
Okay. So
was I anywhere near with Korea for the Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang?
No, you're not. I actually suggested Korea as well, but no, that's not one. I tell you what, though, Renee has got it. So too
well done.
has actually Renee might be the only one. Oh no, Frey's got it as well. Of course, the 1984 Olympics was held in Long Beach. And Long Beach, held in LA, and several venues in Long Beach, which is, of course, where the F1 track used to run through. So it's a bit of a stretch, but we're going with Long Beach on that one.
Well done then.
But you know what? There's been a last-minute addition to our list. This is from JV, who has said the 1936 Olympics, which was held in, officially branded as Berlin 1936. So we're going with Germany on this one, for marathon and cycling in a place called Avus, which then hosted the German Grand Prix in 1959. Are we having that? Are we happy? Yeah, smiles all round? smiles around. And
wild stats.
JV knows his stuff, actually, because he's also followed this up with Long Beach, or their stuff, my apologies. Long Beach, 1984 Los Angeles Olympics, used the convention centre to host volleyball. That convention centre and its car park forms part of the Grand Prix circuit. So I think that's well in there for that one.
Well done.
That's well in there for that one. So well done. Sochi, Montreal, Brands Hatch, Barcelona, Long Beach, Fuji, Rio, and we'll have Berlin in there as well. Why not? But before you go, Rosanna, we've still got 20 minutes left, and we've got one more question for you. Are there any Olympic sports you find at F1 tracks? For example, here's an example of what we don't want. Diving. Okay. That's not allowed, as in diving down the inside of a driver. That's not allowed. So we're looking for Olympic sports you find at F1 tracks. Do you know any? Any off the top of your head? This is easy stuff, this, Rosanna. Come on.
Shooting past your competitor into a corner.
Oh, it's not a bad shout. It's not a bad shout, but we're not allowing it, I'm afraid. Hashtag BBC F1. And we'll let you know. And don't forget, the Olympic talk is because there is the Paris Olympics happening, already ongoing, and the opening ceremony tonight, getting underway from 7 o'clock on BBC Radio 5 Live. Join Mark Chapman, Kenny Cates, with commentary of all of the opening ceremony gambits from Eleanor Oldroyd and Alistair Bruce Bull. That is going to be one to absolutely tune in for and really get into a bit of Olympic fever this weekend. Ahead of the next couple of weeks. 19 minutes and 27 seconds remain of this free practice 2 session. Oh, I went to Rosanna. Did you actually have anything to report, Rosanna, from the pit lane? Or
no, just my lack of intelligence. This weekend started so well, winning the Williams Racing quiz, and now I've just been made to feel idiotic again.
Well, it's because you've been off doing the tennis, so we've just got to get you back in and get you, get you grounded again in Formula One. So we're doing this for you and your benefit.
Oh, thank you. It's for my own personal development. I like it.
Exactly. Yeah, we're all for one and one for all here at 5 Live. It's a team game. No number 1 and number 2 here. Although it is that way at McLaren right now, because Norris is 2/10 clear of Piastri. Verstappen 3rd, Leclerc 4th, Sainz 5th. We were seeing the quick runs, almost the qualifying simulations earlier on the soft tyres, and now teams just egging out lap after lap to see how degradation stacks up across the soft and indeed a couple on the medium tyre. Pirelli bringing the middle of the road compound here this weekend, the C2 hard, the C3 medium and the C4 soft. That rain that was threatening, the 40% chance of which seems to be holding off for the time being. We were expecting mixed conditions today and tomorrow. So far, we've gotten away with it today, but we are in the Ardennes forest, so it can change very quickly. The wind can suddenly change direction, and you are met with a huge rain cloud. But because this circuit is so long as well, just over 7 kilometres, which is just over 4.3 miles, it can be a deluge in the bus stop chicane, but bone dry through Pouhon. So that is something to keep an eye on. Charles Leclerc, on his long run pace at the moment, just comes across the line. What do you think about Ferrari at the moment, Beck? They seem to have been struggling with their off-track development race at the moment. They've had a lot of bouncing over the last few races, and this word of porpoising coming through. They brought in a little bit of an upgrade last weekend out to try and minimise that, but really Hungary, you're not going to see it too much compared to this circuit, where you have got those huge long straights where you've got that ample time to bounce up and down. But Ferrari just seem at the moment 4th and 5th. They dropped back. They're now 3rd in the constructors after McLaren's 1-2 last weekend. From what a team that seemed like they had huge momentum, now suddenly scrambling.
It's all very Ferrari of recent years, it feels like, doesn't it? Although I would say they've got Fred Vasseur at the helm, so I'm sure it's not panic stations yet. They brought an upgrade to Spain, and it definitely does not seem to be working for them. And then last weekend, like you mentioned, it was actually just a bit of a tweak to the floor to see if they could get it to work. I mean, it did improve things, I suppose you could say, but in the last 5 races since Canada, Charles Leclerc, he's had a DNF. 5th in Spain, 11th in Austria, 14th in Silverstone, and then 4th last weekend out in Hungary. It's definitely not going the way for them that they would like, and it does seem to be that they just can't quite work out where this upgrade has flipped over and turned into a downgrade for them. They thought they had the fix for it last weekend, and a fourth place finish was very good actually for Leclerc, given how strong we're now seeing McLaren and Mercedes coming through. Finished ahead of Verstappen, although we could very heavily argue correctly that was because of the incident between Verstappen and Hamilton. So that they just don't seem to quite understand that car. It feels a little bit like they've taken over from Mercedes, where we used to constantly say that from session to session Mercedes didn't understand their car. It's not quite as extreme as that for Ferrari, but they haven't yet got a handle on what is going on, and they are definitely not winning what is turning into a very strong development fight this season.
We were talking about it earlier with the departure of Enrico Cardile going to Aston Martin. Do you think that's going to be actually quite a big effect on Ferrari? Fred Vasseur has said we're not a team is multiple people, it's not one person, and I believe they're announcing, or he plans to announce, a sort of new technical structure going forward, because at the moment Fred Vasseur is now actually kind of covering that role along with being team principal, and I think Vasseur has done a stellar job since he came into Ferrari in changing the culture within that team. But him covering these two jobs isn't really exactly great timing to be spreading his offering across those roles, where really they need to be pinpoint sharp and focused in developing into these next stages. So I wonder actually how big of a loss is it, someone like Enrico Cardile, to Ferrari? It
will be big. Mattia Binotto did a similar joint role when he was team boss at Ferrari, and we know the end result, that didn't work out. You can't do too many jobs, especially when you're at the very helm of this massive ship that is Ferrari. What I think is quite interesting as well is, we were talking about earlier about Adrian Newey and potentially going to Aston Martin. Ferrari have very much been knocking on his door, and perhaps that move, Cardile going to Aston Martin, closes Newey going there, and does it open the door for Newey to then go to Maranello? I suspect not. I think he'll probably end up staying in the UK. But they're basically going to need to go down the paddock and start poaching, aren't they? Yeah,
the Adrian Newey question is interesting, because his role at the moment is Chief Technology Officer, not Chief Technical Officer, as I actually thought it was. And so, I mean, it's a made-up role, but it's one that it's almost just overarching everything in a way. And so Enrico Cardile going to Aston Martin in that Chief Technical Officer role doesn't, I believe, close off the door then to Adrian Newey, because if he wants to join the team, surely they'll have him. But for Cardile, I'm not sure if he would have signed the contract if he thinks he's going to have Newey sort of overlooking him. Or maybe that would be maybe Aston Martin are trying to basically recreate what Red Bull had, because of course Adrian Newey, if he went to Aston Martin, would team back up with Dan Fallows, who was almost his junior at Red Bull.
And actually you could argue that Red Bull currently have the same setup, because they've got Pierre Vacher underneath, who is that kind of Cardile role. And then I think team principals get made to sign this when they sign their contract, the line that this team is 2,000 people, it's not just one person. Although I think you could argue Newey has more of an effect than most. Newey is huge. He's a huge signing wherever he goes, whatever happens. I think Cardile, if he's given the opportunities to work with Newey, would probably welcome it. I mean, who wouldn't? Red Bull have long been arguing that actually his departure is fine because they've got Pierre, so it'll all be okay in the end, as it were. It's interesting, isn't it? Because Newey is definitely stepping back now. We're expecting to hear an announcement from him in September, I think, by contract. That's when he's allowed to actually tell us where he's going. I then believe he's going to leave at the end of the year. From what I understand, he is actually no longer in the main F1 factory anymore. Obviously, I think you could probably call it slight gardening leave, maybe, because, of course, and rightly so, he's leaving. The same thing's happening at Mercedes with Lewis Hamilton. He's slowly, in fact, not even that slowly, it's quite brutal, this sport. You just get pushed to one side, taken out of all of the briefings, particularly for next year and going forward. Any developments, they'll be taken out of those. Even for now, with Newey leaving, he'll be being taken out of those meetings. So, yeah.
Such a strange concept, isn't
weird,
it?
Isn't
to
it?
picture that. Sorry, Adrian. We're all going to go in this boardroom and chat about next year, but can you just not be here? Thanks.
Or it's Adrian Newey's just popped to lunch. Quick, get together.
Quick, go. The man is, well, there's always a question over about who is the greatest of all time when it comes to a driver. And actually, you have to look at somebody like Adrian Newey. With the amount of titles he has overseen, both driver and team, is monumental. He makes a strong case to be the greatest of all time. Now, we've been asking a lot of questions during this session, the first of which was which current or former circuits have been used as Olympic venues, because we've got Olympic fever across the BBC this weekend, with the opening ceremony getting underway this evening from 7 o'clock on 5 Live. And we thought we had exhausted all avenues. We had Sochi, Montreal, Brands Hatch, Barcelona, Fuji, Long Beach, even Rio. And we've had a new addition to the pack. And this has been fact-checked by the BBC higher-ups. And by that, I do mean producer Paddy. Matthew Taylor, thanks for tweeting in, hashtag BBCF1. The Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez is also based in the Magdalena Mixhuca Sports City, used as the Olympic Park in 1968.
Yeah, great shout. Should have thought of that one.
A great shout.
A great circuit, a great race, a great city. Yeah, good one. Should have got that.
Yeah. Rosanna, did you have Mexico up your sleeve?
Did not have Mexico up my sleeve.
No. I tell you what, though, we're also then asked Olympic sports you would find at F1 races, not accepting things like diving, when you dive down the inside. No, we're not having that. Or as Mark said on Twitter, sailing round the outside. It's the same format. We would accept boxing. Boxing is allowed. What do you do when you get called in for a pit stop, Rosanna?
You're boxing.
Exactly. And that
Very good.
is an Olympic sport. We're accepting of that. So any more in the last 10 minutes, feel free to send them through. To be honest, Rosanna, we haven't got many. So really, we're looking for like a couple.
By not many, he means three.
And I've already
including
just given one of them away.
Yeah.
So that's
The
what we're looking
circuit's
for.
curling its way round Monte Carlo.
Oh, I like that, but I'm getting a fierce shaking of the head. No, we're not allowing that. I'm liking the thinking, though. But no, we're not having that. So keep thinking on that one. If you can still do some broadcasting with these ridiculous questions being thrown at you. 9 minutes and 10 seconds. Rosanna, what's the weather looking like down where you are?
On to some more serious journalism. Do you know what? It's very overcast here. There is absolutely no blue sky, showing dark clouds in the distance, but it is dry and it's mild. There was a slight breeze from time to time during the earlier part of the session, but that has totally dropped now. And it's just a very sort of, I would say, quite a dreamy day. I know that sounds a bit odd, but yeah, it doesn't really feel like it's real. I mean, maybe that's just the content of this particular FP2 session. But yes, there's nothing really to write home about with the weather. I was expecting a little bit of rain, 40% chance at the beginning of the session, but it hasn't materialised. And I think the fans who are filling up the grandstands here are probably thankful for that, because so many of them camp, of course, here in the forest. And you don't want a soggy tent, do you?
No, and when it rains at Spa, it absolutely pours, doesn't it? And that just drifts up all the mud and the grass. So no, the weather abating for the time being. And that is actually allowing for the drivers to really have some uninterrupted laps. Both Perez and Verstappen out there. A bit of Flovis paint on the rear wing of, or half of the rear wing on Sergio Perez's car as they evaluate a tweak to the Red Bull rear wing. So Verstappen's actually, in the last few moments, switched back on to his original medium tyre that he started the running on, which is getting on for a bit, exploring that. It's the C3 that is running out here, which is expected to be the preferred race tyre. So with that light drizzle holding off for now, the laps are coming in uninterrupted for Perez, who's just crossed the line, who's doing the same thing. His last lap around was a 1:53. But compare that to who else is on similar running on a medium tyre. George Russell's last lap around was a 1:49.7. So Perez, I think, is struggling out there and has been on the radio in free practice one, not happy with any of the corners, medium, high or low speed, and the turning in of that Red Bull. It's Norris who is currently fastest, set on the soft tyre, a 1:42.2, ahead of Piastri by 0.2 of a second. Then it's Verstappen, Leclerc and Sainz, the top five. Russell is 6th ahead of Ocon. Magnussen 8th ahead of Perez, and Hamilton rounds out the top 10. Stroll, Alonso 11th and 12th ahead of Bottas, Ricciardo and Gasly in 15th. Hulkenberg is 16th, ahead of the two Williams of Albon and Sargent. Then it's Zhou Guanyu and Yuki Tsunoda right at the back in 20th. He also has a 10-place grid penalty.
Braking.
Yes.
Break dancing, breaking.
Yes.
That's what they call it.
Yes. So, Rosanna, you scared? I thought there was like breaking news or something, and you had to come in straight away.
I'm doing my best at some hard-hitting journalism, just shouting breaking.
Breaking. Bingo. I didn't think you'd get that one. Bingo.
And what about fencing? Catch fencing?
Yes. You've nailed it.
Producer Paddy is definitely involved.
No, he really isn't actually on that one.
Oh, on that one.
On that one. Yeah.
Okay. I hear there's some cheating going on with some Google and potential other search engines involved.
Oh no. Oh god, this is going to have to go to
fair play, because I'm not sure it was a great question.
No, it wasn't. We were clutching at straws on that one. But yes, we were looking for fencing. That was the original. That sparked the question. Fencing, boxing and braking were what we were looking for. So if you said that, well done. And
if you're still listening, well done.
If you're still listening, if that hasn't turned you off completely. Someone's just said, #BBC F1, Danny, sprint race. Here's Ricardo.
Something feels strange.
Give us more information, please. Where?
It's just like the car feels wobbly.
Okay.
Like I've got a broken roll bar or something.
Copy, slow in. We're checking.
Okay, so trouble then for Daniel Ricciardo, who's down in 14th at the moment. He's just come into the pits. We'll try and keep you up to speed on that. I think an honourable mention for a sprint race, but there technically isn't an Olympic sport called sprinting. No, there isn't. So, honourable mention, nice try. Gavin has said pole vaulting. Pole vaulting?
Well, are we going to go down into the different categories, or are we just going to do the
under athletics, doesn't it? No, I think we're looking for the overarching.
The name of the main sport.
Yeah. Here's Danny Rick again.
We can see the problem.
Okay, so Daniel Ricciardo being wheeled back into his garage with his engineer Pierre Hamlin saying they can see the problem, and hopefully that means they can go about fixing it. He's back into the RB garage, and the mechanics immediately get to work, and I think Ricciardo almost looking to get out of that car because there's only 4 minutes left of the session. Okay, so no, we're not allowing pole vaulting. It has to be an overarching sport, but you know, honourable credit. Oh, Nicola, I'm sorry, #BBC F1 3 minutes ago she said braking before Rosanna. Credit where credit is due. Well done, Nicola, on #BBC F1. Anyway, 3 minutes and 42, 41 and 40 seconds remain of this hard-hitting broadcasting coming at you. This is BBC's coverage of Formula One. You're listening to Free Practice 2 for the Belgian Grand Prix. The last Grand Prix before the summer break, if it wasn't obvious enough. After the longest first part of a season ever, with 14, this will be the 14th race this weekend. You can tell, can't you? Everyone's a bit D-mob happy, a bit doolally, and it's a real end of term feeling, isn't it? It is, isn't it? But we can't get too end of term. We can't be wheeling the telly in yet and watching a film. But it's not quite Sunday afternoon yet. No, not quite. But at the moment, it is looking like McLaren are very much back in the hunt again this weekend. Lots of questions about, do they have the quickest car? It is still early days in practice. We don't know the fuel loads either, but they are up there and looking strong. Verstappen will have the penalty of 10 places to overcome during the race, and it doesn't look like Sergio Perez is able to play backup at this stage in the game. He's down in 9th, 1.2 seconds off Norris's fastest time, whereas Verstappen is only 0.2 off of Lando Norris's time. This is the sound of Max Verstappen, who is set pole here once and won 3 times in the last 3 years, with a lot of scrutiny on his attitude over the radio towards his team and his off-track exploits as well, but always seems to fight those away. With just 2 minutes to go, Verstappen, technically a home track for him. Mother is Belgian, so too for Lando Norris. Again, the mother is Belgian, so too for Lance Stroll. Max Verstappen was actually born in Belgium. And that's why you're here, Beck.
I know. I'm bringing it back to the real journalism.
Do you know where he was born?
Hassett.
Oh, well done. Very
I've been in this game way too long.
Well done. Yeah. And he is 20. No, not in September yet. 26 years old. It's hard to actually remember that these drivers are so young. That this generation of drivers. There was all this talk about Piastri being the first driver born in the noughties to win a race, but I mean, Lando Norris has been around way longer than Oscar Piastri is, but he's only a couple of years older than him. And that, to me, is a strange concept to understand.
You've spent all day making me feel old.
I'm so old. Yeah.
This is how it's going to be. Yeah, no, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because Max Verstappen has been around a very long time, it feels like. Triple world champion, heading potentially towards his fourth, depending on what McLaren decide to do.
Next year, he'll have been in the sport for 10 years.
Yeah, this is his 9th season, isn't it? Yeah.
2015 he came in.
Yeah, and so that's quite extraordinary for 26. I definitely wasn't doing anything like this for 9 years when I was that age. No, they do seem to be very young, don't they? Lando's in his 5th season now, same as George Russell.
Well, it kind of lends to a bit of chatter about Kimi Antonelli and this young F2 driver that Mercedes want to bring through. There's a lot of hype around him. I believe he's getting actually another run out in an old Mercedes F1 car here in Belgium post this weekend.
Yeah, Tuesday.
But there's a tweak to the super license rules as well to try and allow somebody like Kimi Antonelli to come into the sports. So clearly age is increasingly less and less of a barrier, which Max Verstappen proved almost 10 years ago.
Well, I mean, the FIA don't completely agree. They obviously, after Verstappen came in, they changed the minimum age to 18. It's interesting, just very quickly on Antonelli, as the checkered flag has just fallen, that in Hungary, he obviously won the F2 race there, and then in his post-race press conference said, he was asked if he was going to go up to Mercedes, and he said, actually, do you know what? I don't think I'm ready. And that was quite telling, because you do get the sense that they're moving away from him slightly, maybe. He's only 17 years old now. He'll be 18 actually on the 25th of August. You do get the impression that Mercedes have cooled slightly on the idea of him moving up to F1. There was also a bit of chatter. It looks like Williams asked the FIA to perhaps change or have an allowance to allow Antonelli to do an FP1 for Williams. Because Williams were looking at promoting him perhaps in the second half of the Ricciardo says the car seems to be okay now. They were going to promote him to Williams to replace Logan Sargent, but we don't think that's happening now. I'm not actually sure who will replace Logan Sargent if this is indeed his last race weekend. So yeah, age it's a funny one, isn't it? They seem to get younger and younger and younger. I think, Lewis Hamilton was 21, 22 when he came in, and now they all seem to be, if you're not in by 18, you're not in at all.
It's the same in the commentary box, I'll tell you that right now. It's getting younger and younger.
Oh, I'm glad the day's nearly over.
That is the checkered flag. Daniel Ricciardo was sent out to make sure everything is okay, and it seems like they have fixed whatever the problem is with that RB. But you'll be pleased to know we've made it to the end of free practice 2. So we've all made it just about in one piece. Lando Norris, the quickest of them all, 2/10 clear on a 1:42.2 ahead of Oscar Piastri. Max Verstappen is third, Charles Leclerc fourth, and Carlos Sainz rounding out the top 5. Then it's Russell, Ocon, Magnussen, Perez and Hamilton the top 10. Stroll, Alonso, Bottas, Ricciardo, Gasly the top 15 ahead of Hülkenberg, Albon, Sargent, Zhou Guanyu and Yuki Tsunoda, Rosanna Tennant. One more question for you, Rosanna. Which... No, I'm kidding.
Oh, I thought you really had one for me.
I've bled dry. I've got nothing left.
I feel you. I feel your pain. Harry Benjamin and Beck Hussey, thank you very much for providing lots of entertainment during that FP2 session. Lots of Olympics-related chatter. Of course, the Olympics getting underway, and we are very excited about it here at the BBC. And we're very excited about what we've seen today in FP1 and FP2. Max Verstappen fastest in FP1, and then Lando Norris fastest in FP2. It does look like Red Bull and McLaren are the ones to beat this weekend, but of course Max Verstappen with that 10-place grid penalty. We'll be back tomorrow for FP3. We'll be live at 11:25 on the BBC Sport website, and then of course we have qualifying as well. We'll be live at 5 to 3 on the website again to determine the grid for the Belgian Grand Prix. Hopefully you'll join us then, but from Beck, Harry and me, Rosanna Tennant, it is goodbye. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.